All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. And so we want to welcome you to our Lakers Online question and answer session as a follow up to our parent information, prospective student information session that we held last week. So I'm beginning to feel like we're becoming old friends via Zoom. I'm sure you've seen a lot of us and heard a lot from us, but we're trying to continue to communicate and be as transparent as possible and make sure that we answer a number of your questions. I'm going to have my team that has joined us tonight introduce themselves and let them tell you what their role is within the district and what they're going to be. And I'll talk a little bit about what they're going to be doing tonight to help us facilitate this conversation. So Amy, you're the first one on my screen, and I apologize to everybody watching at home. I know that you can only see the person who is speaking. I need to find that setting so that you can see my lovely panels that are sitting with me. So I won't talk as much tonight so you can see people other than me. So Amy, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Quinn, and I am the K-12 Math and Science Coordinator.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Law. I'm the K-12 Social Studies Testing and Instructional Technology Coordinator.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gianna Taylor, and I am the ELA Curriculum Coordinator, and we're going to be furiously answering questions in the Q&A chat section. If you put them in there, we'll do our best to answer them if we can.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Eric Whitney. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Talent Development and Management, and it looks like you all are Dan Durkin, so welcome, and I hope that we have a great night and get all your questions answered.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about what our format is for this evening. Many of you submitted questions on our Google form today, so thank you. And if you did not have an opportunity to do so, that no problem at all. We'll do our very best. What we did really was to sort those questions into large themes. So while my team is going to be furiously answering questions, you may find that we answer them as we go through the course of the evening. So if we don't answer right away, or if you want to wait just a little bit and let us get started, then you're probably going to get most of your questions answered. I also want to be clear about the purpose for tonight, and so that we understand that what kind of questions we're going to be answering. So the purpose for tonight is to talk about Lakers Online only. We won't be talking about our return to school, what that might look like in person tonight. As you probably saw, we started to share yesterday information that next Tuesday, July the 21st at 10 a.m. via Zoom, and then again at 7 p.m., same presentation, that we will be talking about what our in-person model will be in the fall. So there were a number of you, thank you, who submitted questions about what's going to happen. Are we coming back 5 days? Are we coming back 2 days? Are we coming back? When are we coming back? Are we coming back at all? We are not going to address those questions tonight. That is still really a work in progress and really not the purpose of this evening. So tonight we're going to be answering questions about Lakers Online. The structure of today's session, as we talked a little bit, is we went through many of you who've submitted the questions. And so we probably, in just today, the course of today, got probably 200 questions. And so obviously we're not going to go line by line. You wouldn't want us to do that. We don't want to do that. So we did go through and kind of group those by theme. We tried to respond and have been trying to keep up with the Lakers Online help as much as possible. I will tell you it's been a little slower, and I apologize, than what we'd like it to be. We launched professional development for 500 staff members yesterday, and so the team's a little tired, and so we're getting caught up. We're getting rejuvenated and energized, and so we'll continue to answer questions and do a little better about being timely to getting back with you with those questions as well. So we're going to answer questions today. And we have really kind of taken out some of those things that are really, really specific. And so if there are things that are very specific to you, then or your child, then I would suggest we resubmit those questions into the Lakers Online piece. But we're going to talk generally about registration. We're going to talk about schools of choice, talk about what courses are going to be offered, talk about a number of things along those lines, just so you have a better understanding, timeline, before you need to make that decision about what's going to be your path or your child's path for instruction in the fall. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. You met our facilitators, and so thank you. And we appreciate all of you. There are, just in case you wondered, there are 317 of you right now at home who are watching and listening to this. So thank you for taking another evening to spend time with all of us. So what we really wanted to start with was some conversation about the structure of Lakers Online and the daily schedule, live teaching, and then obviously the difference from the spring. So I'm going to let Mr. Whitney kind of talk about the difference from the spring, what we were offering, why it looks the way that it did in the spring.
Thank you, Mrs. Barish. Hello, everybody. So this is really a frequent question that I've heard over the last couple of days since we launched Lakers Online, since we started talking again about and planning for our in-person work, is that the spring was really forced all of us, parents, educators, schools, to really pivot kind of on a dime and move from in-person teaching to online in a whole system-wide fashion that we had never really done before. And so while we're very proud of all that everybody together in this community accomplished, from educators to parents and families, we know that there were a lot of improvements and there was a lot of learning done in that process. So what I'm going to say to you is that this fall is really going to capitalize on those lessons that we have learned. You're going to see, I think, this online program becoming much more robust. We have purchased a new platform to launch that. So that is one major difference that you will see right away. We were using Google Classroom before in our district. So when we went online in the spring, that was a natural connection for us, and we went right to Google Classroom to help manage the online learning. But we really found out that that was not robust enough for really a sustained, complete online learning program. So that's the first difference that you're really going to see. We also, in the spring, there were a number of really directives, I would say, that came from the governor, that came from her executive orders, that came from the Michigan Department of Education, in terms of grading students, in terms of really holding students harmless for the transition and school districts' preparedness to be able to do that. So while we really focused on really just credit or no credit, for many of you, we've heard the feedback that that was not rigorous enough, that was not at the level you would expect from West Bloomfield School District, and we definitely understand that. So many of those requirements are not in place for this fall's learning, because we are planning this program as its own standalone online learning option. So you will see grading that looks more like regular grading that you're used to in regular bricks and mortar school, completion of assignments, all those things where we were really giving a lot of grace and leeway to students and teachers this spring will really come back as part of the program. So I know that that is an expectation that many of the parents I've talked to have really been hoping for, and that you will see as we launch Lakers Online this fall.
Thank you very much. And now you can see all of us at home. So panelists, we got our view all picked. So just so that you're aware that you are able to be viewed now. So I would want people to tell me that as well. So let's talk a little bit about daily schedule and live teaching. So I'm going to talk about this generally, because we obviously, just like I talked about last week, are still in the planning stages. And once we've identified those staff members who will be teaching Lakers Online, we'll begin that professional development intensely around student engagement, building really, really high quality, as Eric said, rigorous online instruction, and so forth. But the daily schedule is really going to in many ways mirror the regular school day. And I think, as I shared last week, what's important is that our teachers also have families and so forth. And so they're going to operate on a pretty typical school day. While there certainly will be flexibility, particularly with older students, about maybe due dates and when things need to be turned in. Again, we talked a lot about how high school students, including the ones who I have, my own children, prefer to work late into the evening. So maybe things aren't due until later in the evening. But again, there's a parenting component to that, right? So if, as moms and dads, you want to structure your day, would be my suggestion, that they get up, they get their work done, that it mirrors as much as possible a regular school day. But our teachers will operate within that regular kind of daily schedule. Can I tell you right now that high school teachers are going to work 7 to 2:10 just like they do now? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's good for them. I'm not sure, that's a tough one with online as well. Can I tell you that we're going to do on the north end or south end elementary schedule? No. What I am saying is that it's not going to be, we're not holding classes at 8 p.m. Okay, so it's going to be much more of a typical daily schedule. When you think about amount of time, if you went to the website, you probably saw some sample schedules about how we've allocated minutes of instruction. That does not mean that they're going to be in front of that Chromebook for all those minutes. That means they're going to have reading to do, they're going to have writing to do, they're going to have science to work on, they're going to have the opportunity to work in math, all of those things. That does not mean that they're sitting directly in front of that Chromebook. That really is just a guide for how many minutes they should be spending on the coursework. And so we want to make sure that you're clear about that. We don't think it's healthy, and I'm sure you don't as well, to have students in front of a device for hours and hours on end. It will be at home, remote learning only, but a blend between in-person or online instruction and the opportunity to practice what they've learned. So we want to be clear about that. As far as live teaching goes, there will be opportunity for live interaction with your West Bloomfield teacher. We anticipate that the needs of students will certainly drive some of that. There's a need for younger students, particularly K-5 students, to have direct instruction daily from their teacher. How many minutes will certainly depend upon what we're talking about. If we're talking about small group for reading, then every student should have that opportunity at least 3 or 4 times a week. If we're talking about math instruction and launching a math lesson, that should probably happen 2 or 3 times a week. And so with the live instruction. So we're going to set some kind of, in conjunction with our teachers, expectations around how much they should be live and the value of that and the purpose. And we want to make sure that it's purposeful. I would say particularly, we talked about high school today. High school students have a different need to have live instruction versus an elementary student. Let's be frank, or even a middle school student. A high school student is going to want to have the opportunity to interact with the teacher to answer questions, to be able to get clarity around maybe an assignment that they've worked on. Maybe they have the opportunity just to participate in a group discussion, but I'm not sure that how valuable it is for a high school student to participate in a lecture online. What we envision is that a Lakers Online teacher would record their lecture or their notes or their explanation of whatever it is that they're working on, whether that's science or math or something in social studies, etc. And then the student would have the opportunity to watch that on Canvas, and then come to either office hours during their scheduled course time or just office hours during a regular school day to get extra help or to ask those questions or to participate in discussion. The other piece of that would be that if your child is struggling, we're going to make sure that we reach out and the teacher reaches out to get in touch with you and with your child and say, you know what, they really do need to come to office hours. They really do need to be in that Zoom session because they're struggling, they're not getting work turned in, or they didn't do well on the last assignment. So we really need you to make sure that they log in and have that interaction. As Eric talked about, our new learning management system, Canvas, is really awesome. And I promise you that my team is smiling because they know, because they literally have spent countless hours working in it. Teachers can record video lessons, students can record video responses, teachers can just voice record after they've interacted with a student or they've read an assignment and it immediately comes to your email. It's just so much different than just getting written feedback all the time. So there will be much more two-way communication. I don't know how much of it will actually always be live. That's a lot to sit in front of Zoom, as you know, all day long and do these things, but there's obviously an opportunity to always interact with that teacher. Email still works. There's a direct link to email within Canvas. There is a collaboration space where there's opportunity to go back and forth in a discussion board. So we are really working to enhance our two-way communication via Canvas. And so that's how it also will differ from the spring. It will be much more rigorous. There will be much higher expectations. It will also need to be a little more in this, and we talked about this last time, self-sufficient, in the sense that your child needs to be able to log in. They need to get started on their own. They really need, maybe outside elementary, have to work on time management skills and on those sorts of things as well. So we will work with you during parent and student orientation. We will work with the staff, and there will be ongoing communication about what that structure is going to look like as we move forward through the next few months as we move into Lakers Online. There's been a lot of conversation about graduation requirements, Michigan requirements, grades, and attendance. And I think Eric really touched on grades and attendance. And so, if you want to reiterate some things that you said, we certainly can go back to some of those things around grades and seat time. Maybe we could talk a little bit about hours and minutes and what's required in the state and the flexibility. But I can assure you that Lakers Online meets the graduation requirements that are established by the West Bloomfield Board of Education as well as the state of Michigan. These are taught by certified West Bloomfield teachers. They are West Bloomfield courses. They follow our curriculum. They follow the state and national standards where those are all exist, which is pretty much every content area. And it will be rigorous enough, and it certainly will be challenging, and it will be robust enough that it meets those Michigan graduation requirements. If you have experiences with online courses, you know they come in a variety of formats. Some of them, in fact, we offer some at the high school where it's really completely self-paced. They never interact with the teacher. They kind of go through the motions. They watch videos, they read, they submit a quiz. And it's just, that just takes place until they've earned credit. They've passed enough that they've earned credit. This is going to be significantly more challenging and rigorous than those kinds of courses. So we know firmly that we have high standards for all students in the district, and that they will definitely meet the requirements that we set forth for graduation. So it will be a West Bloomfield diploma, and it will certainly prepare your child to move to whatever that next phase of life is, whether that's work, whether that's a 2-year opportunity or a 4-year opportunity. We're sure that what we're going to provide will be rigorous enough that your child will feel prepared and you'll feel confident in all those things. Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about hours and what seat time waiver kind of language exists for people in Michigan so they know why we don't have to be in bricks and mortar?
Right. So seat time waivers have been around for a long time. I could not even tell you what year they began. I'm not sure in my history, but any district I've ever worked in, we have had seat time waivers. So basically, what that means is we apply through the state for a specialized program to have a seat time waiver, meaning students do not have to be in their seats for the required amount of instructional time. And our instructional requirements for, let's call it regular school in Michigan, are a minimum of 180 days of instruction and a minimum of 1,098 hours. We have to meet both requirements. And so when you apply for a program to be on a seat time waiver, it means that your program is really about mastering the content regardless of how long that takes. So our programs are designed around learning standards that are adopted in Michigan and in our school district. And the seat time waiver allows students to complete those, master those standards and complete their education in whatever amount of time it takes them without having to meet that very rigid 180 days or 1098 hours.
Thank you. And so that's how we also work around those attendance pieces, because it's towards that mastery. And so, yes, we will certainly expect your children to attend, and that we will track attendance. But, as Eric talked about before, when we were in the spring, attendance was not required. Yet West Bloomfield took attendance every single day. And we had really high numbers of a significant amount of students that attended every single day, or at least completed the Google form. We understood that happened as well. So there is some flexibility, and that's really should be part of the draw to something like Lakers Online, is that it does provide families and students with the flexibility that sometimes works better for those schedules. So hopefully that helps. I see the team is feverishly writing answers as they go along, which I love. So I feel like we're on a court reporter show. They're quickly writing as we answer questions. Schools of choice. Let's talk about that a little bit. You may want to go back and look at, we did share the presentation from last week. And so that is there, as well as the webinar from last week where we talked about schools of choice. But let's talk through this again, because I know it's confusing, and there's 2 paths of schools of choice into the West Bloomfield School District. So we're going to talk about Lakers Online first, since that's where we are tonight. That's the focus of our conversation. If we are offering Lakers Online, kindergarten through 12th grade. The window opened a couple weeks ago, and it closes on August the 3rd. If you go to our website, wbsd.org, you're going to see a pop-up that talks about Lakers Online. You want to click on that link, and it takes you to the Lakers Online page. About 3/4 of the way down the page, it talks about enrollment. On the left side, it's about in-district students, and on the right side, it says schools of choice. You want to complete the schools of choice link if you live outside the attendance area of West Bloomfield. So if, you might even have a West Bloomfield address, but your school attendance is Walled Lake. You need to complete that, okay? Wherever that is within Oakland County. We cannot accept students from outside of Oakland County. Our SOC agreement is only students within Oakland County, just so we're clear about that. So the board approved 140 seats for schools of choice and Lakers Online, 140 seats. If we go beyond, if we have more applicants beyond 140, then we would have to go to a lottery. And that's no different than what we do for regular schools of choice for K2. So every February, we hold a lottery. Those kids who've applied to go to schools of choice, either at Gretschko or at Doherty, are entered into a lottery. Their numbers are pulled, they're ranked, and then those who fall within our number are able to enroll. Everybody else is waitlisted. Right now, right this minute, there is not a wait list. So anybody who has applied for SOC thus far would get in. That will grow, and just because you applied early doesn't guarantee your spot if we reach over that 140. So we want you to understand that. So please make sure you get your application in. You have to have it in by August 3rd. We have no exceptions. That is when our window closes. Students who come to West Bloomfield via schools of choice for Lakers Online must remain in Lakers Online for the full year. They may not, even if when we go back to bricks and mortar school, may not enter any of our bricks and mortar buildings this school year. In fact, if you come in as schools of choice from Lakers Online, you have to apply for STEAM, and that window opens in January, typically closes in February, and meet criteria and that in order to be considered to come to our bricks and mortar school. So there is no direct avenue into our bricks and mortar for students who enter via schools of choice for Lakers Online. The assumption is you want online learning, and that's why you've enrolled in Lakers Online. So we want to be clear about that. We talked a lot about athletics and eligibility the last time, so I would encourage you to go back and we do have an athletics FAQ now in that worksheet. Also within our conversation last week in our second session, not our first session, we talked about athletics. An incoming 9th grader who is coming in via schools of choice is eligible to play any sport that's still going to run in the fall, okay? So if I'm coming to West Bloomfield, Lakers Online, incoming 9th grader, and I want to run cross country, and I ran cross country at my middle school, no problem, because you've never entered any high school and you have not used any of your eligibility. So no problem, you can do that. If you are coming to West Bloomfield Schools of Choice and you're a sophomore, junior, or senior, and you ran cross country last year at your high school, you may not run cross country for West Bloomfield in the fall. You can play volleyball, you can play football, you can play soccer, you can play tennis, you can play any of those things that we offer in the fall, other than cross country, because you've already done that in your previous high school. So you're not eligible to run cross country when you come to West Bloomfield. And the truth be told, that is to stop students from moving from kind of athletic hotspots. So if it happens to be that you are a really great volleyball player and you want to go to a high school as a sophomore or a junior who just won the state title in volleyball, you cannot do that. You would have to sit out that season and then play the next year. And it really comes down to transfer and eligibility, and really trying not to build these powerhouse programs just based on athletics. So that's full transparency. You are eligible via schools of choice to participate in any of our activities. So if you want to stay home, but then you want to come in and come to homecoming, or you want to be in debate club, or you want to do Model UN, or you want to do any of those extracurricular activities, you are more than welcome to do so. You're a West Bloomfield student who just happens to attend their classes via Lakers Online. So hopefully that clears up schools of choice. If you are a current schools of choice student, if you are currently enrolled in West Bloomfield, I'll stay where I am. If you are currently a current West Bloomfield schools of choice student, so I don't live within the district. My kids attend school somewhere else. I decide that I want them to come to school in West Bloomfield. They're already enrolled. They've already been in West Bloomfield for a number of years. You are a West Bloomfield student. So if you came in via schools of choice, either at Gretschko or at Doherty as a kindergartner, first or second grader, or you came in via STEAM at the high school, middle schools, or at Roosevelt, you are a West Bloomfield student. That allows you to move to Lakers Online and to decide whether or not this is for you, and then to return back to bricks and mortar school after first semester. We are asking, requiring, really more than anything, that our students remain in Lakers Online for the semester. It's really disruptive for the students. It really is very disruptive to bring them back into the building at that point in time when we've established kind of our cohorts and what the classrooms and what that's going to look like. So we really ask that they need to stay within Lakers Online for the first semester. Schools of choice, SOC, Lakers Online, the full year. West Bloomfield students can return if they so choose at semester. So that's the difference between the two. Same rules apply around athletics that have always. You're a West Bloomfield student once you've come in via STEAM. We've had a lot of questions around, if I wanted to try it out. So I'm a West Bloomfield student. We do Lakers Online for a couple weeks, and then we decide it's not for us. Now, those will be individual conversations that you'll need to have with myself and with our team. Again, we have to talk about a little bit about the back and forth and why that's pretty disruptive to everyone. And I know there's a lot of questions, and I know that's why we're asking you to really think very clearly and long and hard about whether this is the best option. Simply because we can't have people moving back and forth. So hopefully that took care of the schools of choice questions that we had. When you submit the Google form, you're not going to get anything in return. Okay, so it's not going to say that you're not going to get a thank you for applying, whatever. Just assume that it went through. It's a Google form. And so as we get into the lottery, if we have any questions, or as we get into enrollment, if we have any questions, we'll reach out to you. The enrollment process will look like this. New schools of choice via Lakers Online. We will contact you after August the 3rd to set up enrollment appointments and to tell you what documents you need to bring. You will need to show that you're a resident of Oakland County. You'll need to show a number of other things that we require of all families when they enroll, attendance records, report cards, all those sorts of things. So we'll be in touch with you after August 3rd to talk about enrollment and talk about next steps, parent and student orientation, how you're going to get your device, all those kinds of things. Current West Bloomfield students, you just complete the Google form that's on the website. And I know the FAQ said you should notify your principal. You can. It's nice to do that. We also will let them know. They are anxious to see the spreadsheet to see who's looking at Lakers Online. And so we'll be sharing that information, so they'll have it too as they talk about classes and so forth. But you do need to complete the form. That's all you need to do if you're a current West Bloomfield student. We will take you out of your current home school and enroll you then into Lakers Online. So there's nothing that we need on your end other than for you to complete that form indicating that that's the move that you want to make for your family. Switching between online and in person. So I'm going to answer this one and then I'll try to be quiet for the next one and let somebody else talk a little bit. We talked a little bit about why we need to have a firm commitment. We know that sometimes this obviously is related, and you're considering this because of, in many cases, worry about sending your children back to school with COVID still increasing and not necessarily feeling like school is a safe place for your kids. Some of you may be considering it because the spring went well, your children thrived, and you feel like online is the best way to continue. Whatever your reasoning may be, we're going to support that, and that's why we started Lakers Online. However, you need to make that commitment, and you need to understand that it can't just be 2 weeks, we tried it, and so now we want to go back to bricks and mortar. You come back to bricks and mortar, we have a situation where maybe we have to close a building because of COVID, or it's just not successful. Your child's been happier at home and doing better at home. Now we want to go back to Lakers Online. And this could be a never-ending game of back and forth. We just cannot have that. The real reason is that once a child is established, we've gotten them into Canvas. They've really begun to connect even virtually with their online teacher and their online peers. They will have interaction with their peers via Lakers Online, just via Zoom instead of in person. We want them to remain there, so for continuity. We talked a lot about moving forward in the standards at any pace, place, and time. We really believe that it would be difficult then to switch back into in-person, where we may not be following the same pace. And quite frankly, that instruction might look different or will look different than in person, because that's just the nature of remote learning versus in-person learning. And so we won't be doing switches back and forth. We believe that it's much easier for us to have you start online and then at semester move you into in person than vice versa. However, if you choose to start the school year, not Lakers Online SOC, but regular West Bloomfield students, you choose to start the school year in the bricks and mortar building and then decide this is not where you feel safe or comfortable, or your children don't feel safe or comfortable, or quite frankly, academically, you'd like to do something different, then we can make that switch to online. We can move you into Lakers Online. That really is easier than to go from online into in-person. And so we want you just to know that we'll work with you and we'll try to be as understanding and as reasonable as possible. Just understand that in life there's lots of choices and that we have to make sure that we can manage and that we are doing what's best for all kids and for our staff. And so it's also hard when they build rapport and they get their kind of routines in place if we have back and forth all the time. So please, that is something we want you to understand about moving back and forth. We really are discouraging that from happening, and it will involve some conversation with people, stakeholders, us, my team along the way before we make those switches, anything after you've gotten started. So that's why we're continuing to do these things, right? So you have as much information to make those decisions. I'll take this one because I don't want to throw this to Mr. Whitney because this might, or yes, his face is like, no thanks. So how will electives and specials work? As we talked about last week, there are just some classes that are not going to lend themselves to a remote learning experience. And I'm not going to name those here because those poor teachers will have a heart attack if I say, oh, right. But since we don't really offer woodworking, I would tell you that woodworking would be a really hard class to do online. I'm not going to drop off a bandsaw at your house and have you create, whatever, your birdhouse or whatever it is that we typically did in wood shop. So those are courses that just don't lend themselves well to online learning. What those that do, we can still do art online. That's not a problem. We can still do many music things online. That's not a problem. We can obviously do engineering. You can do CAD design. We can certainly do many of our Project Lead the Way courses at the middle school, all of them online. So those kind of courses will still exist. That's not an issue. Electives at the elementary, we too feel that we have done very well, particularly in the spring, with allowing those courses to take place. So I'll give an example from middle school that I really, really liked. Danielle Walker is the middle school PE teacher at Abbott, and she did some awesome stuff with her kids this spring. So she would record herself doing whatever the activity was. Often her little children, her kids at home, were also in the videos with her, and then she had students tracking their progress and submitting it. That was easy. We didn't need to be in person to do that, and they could still earn their PE credit by doing that. Online PE has been around for many, many years. I've been an educator for almost 25 years. We had online PE 20 years ago at my high school. And so I think that we'll be able to manage those sorts of things. There will be elective options. There will be special options. There are some that just are going to be more difficult to really effectively deliver online. And so your course options, those elective options will be narrower, but they will still exist. And so we'll want to make sure that you understand that. And of course, those things that if you have something that your child is extremely passionate about, and it would be really difficult to do online. And I'm just going to throw one out. We have not made any decisions formally about this, but I'll give a high school example. If your child really likes theater and enjoys theater and has been waiting forever to get to take that elective, I'm not sure how well. Yes, you can read plays, and if that's the direction we go, then no problem. But if there is some sort of performance-based, particularly in groups and so forth, we might struggle with that a little bit more. So we're going to have to be realistic about what makes sense and how we're going to be able to manage that with staff as well. So while the options might be narrower, there still will be elective options and specials for your kids. Okay. So I think we want you to be aware of all those kind of things. Okay, let's see. there's a lot of things here. So um, let's talk a little bit, and I might have Amy, I might have you jump in, surprise, and talk a little bit about Magnet, because we did send some communication out about that today. Amy is our resident specialist program expert. So things like Magnet, advanced and compact math. Why don't you talk about those sorts of things, and I'll jump in around AP and so forth.
Sure, sounds good. I was just answering questions about those topics just now. So July 22nd will be when our course schedule will be available online, and it will have specific courses. In regards to math placement, once the student is a Laker Online student, then I'll look at what their placement is. If a placement test needs to be done, we'll do so. But we want to make sure that we have the best possible math placement for each individual student, just like we would in brick and mortar, just like we do in our buildings. When it comes to Magnet, Magnet is a program that is housed at Roosevelt. And students that are in Magnet and have already met criteria, and if they go to Lakers Online, their spot will be held for them for if they wanted to return. The actual Magnet program will not be offered online because it is a program at Roosevelt that's a multi-aged classroom. So that kind of hopefully explains a few of the questions that we did see. And then, yeah, I think really once we get that course schedule up, you'll be able to see things in particular.
Awesome, thank you. So basically, we'll be flexible. Obviously, advanced and compact math are going to be options, no problem. Magnet is not going to be an option, just to reiterate, online. But we won't give if you choose to move into Lakers Online, that's not an issue. We'll get you put in the right math course. That's also the beauty of Canvas. So if I'm a fourth grade Magnet student, and we'll be doing the last half of fourth and fifth grade math, we'll make sure that you stay on track. That's not an issue at all. But we will not be able to deliver the Magnet curriculum in the same way online. However, if you then choose to return to bricks and mortar, your spot will still exist. So we want to make sure that you're clear about that. AP, there are lots and lots of online AP courses now that exist across the country. And so many school districts and rural areas don't offer AP courses because they can't support them. And they don't have the staff to be able to do that, or the number of students who are really ready to take AP courses. And so we know it can be done, and it can be done well. One of the things about AP is it's a for lack of a better term, it's a canned curriculum. So it's really, you open it up, you follow what they tell you to do, you submit your syllabus, you submit your materials, and it has to be aligned to that test at the end. So quite honestly, it's one of the more probably easier to manage in an online setting. To be clear, however, AP courses like physics and chem that have a large lab component are not nearly as easy to deliver online. So we'll be working in conjunction with the high school to see how feasible those courses are and what that might look like if we tried to do some sort of lab situation. So again, that's a situational conversation. AP Lang, AP Lit is one that we could offer online and is done in many places without any issue at all. When you talk about things like AP Calc, if your child can handle that and does it and can handle maybe a little significantly less direct instruction around math, those are certainly things that we can discuss as well. So AP will be offered, again, maybe not every course. And if you have one that your child is really passionate about and has been waiting to take, that might also be a little bit of a driver about whether or not this is the best place for you. We talked about last week, the course scheduling guide will be available a week from tomorrow, the 22nd. So we're giving you ample time to be able to make that decision and review the course scheduling guide before moving forward. Application-based courses. So we talked a little bit about CTE courses, business courses, marketing, engineering. Most of those can move online without an issue. Things that might not be able to, internship at the high school would be a difficult one. I'm not sure what that might look like anyway in the fall. Kids traveling into places of work may not necessarily be something that the businesses are willing to do at that point in time either. Foods classes, those sorts of things are just a stretch, just because of feasibility. Okay, so those are probably some of the ones where we would have to think about whether that made sense. We just talked about OSTC today, and I'll be honest, that's one we have to research. I'm not sure I've seen what OSTC's model is going to be in the fall. I'm not sure. I don't know. And so we will follow up on that. We actually had conversation earlier today and really couldn't answer that question. So we'll do some research and then get back with all of you. We'll put it in the FAQ, or if you want, are particularly interested in knowing more about, that's the Oakland Schools Technical Campus. So that's where our students go for a half day to do some of those application-based sorts of things, whether that's carpentry or welding or cosmetology or foods. There's a number of programs, awesome programs they offer, by the way. I don't know what their plan is. So we will, if you want to submit that question into our help into Lakers Online, we'll get that answer out to you, because I'm not exactly sure what OSTC is going to be doing. Technology. Somebody want to talk a little bit about technology and what we're providing, and a little bit about Canvas? Those of you who particularly are well versed and have been working in it extremely hard. Okay, Amy, want to take that one too?
I'm sorry, I was typing away. Can you tell me again?
About technology, talk a little bit about Canvas, Chromebooks, all that good stuff.
Sure. And there was a question about Canvas and what it really looks like. So, you want to maybe think of it almost like a website where you can have different like quick access buttons. You could go directly to a certain subject, or whether it's a Zoom link, but you're able to do, many things that you would do in classrooms. So having a discussion, how it would look online is they would be able to post a recording or type in and respond to each other. And you're able to do quizzes, and there's assignments. So it's very easy to navigate, and definitely that is going to be a huge change for us with virtual learning. When it comes to Chromebooks or anything else, that will Canvas also will be easily run on the Chromebooks, and there's an app. So the integration with Google, that was another classroom a little bit about Google apps, whether it's Google Slides or Google Docs. Yes, Canvas is able to integrate easily with those also. So that will be some interactions that students will be able to have. Catherine, did you want to add one?
Yeah, just to add to that real quick, we'll also be having, as the school year nears, some helpful parent and student orientation webinars to help everybody become familiar with Canvas, the platform for parents and for students. So everyone will have an opportunity to see what that looks like in the future.
And Catherine, I assume we would post that on our website if there's like a certain date or a time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd have no problem, showing that. Thank you.
Right, and we'll also have dates around Chromebook deployment. So we, the Board of Education approved Chromebooks, brand new Chromebooks for every student in West Bloomfield. And so everyone, even if you tell me that you don't need a Chromebook, you're getting one, because we spent a lot of time kind of handing them out after people realized, oh, maybe I really do need one. So you're going to get one. And also we'll have Wi-Fi access available as well for those families who need that. We talked again a little bit last week that these are the latest and greatest Chromebooks. They're going to support all the video needs that you're going to have within Canvas. It obviously comes loaded. It's a Google product, so it comes with all the apps that you're going to need. We're going to push out some software that we feel will be very important as we move forward. So it's going to come ready to go. Really just plug and play. Open up, have your child log in. You're going to be all set. So which should be really awesome. And then the other thing is we want you to know about the hotspots. They are Verizon wireless hotspots, but they're run through a company called Kajit. And so it is that your child will not have access. It does track where your children go, and it does not allow them on sites that they shouldn't be on. Not telling you that there aren't workarounds, there always are, but they should be blocked. It also limits the amount of data that you have each month. We did have some families in the spring who kind of went through data very quickly, probably more so than what would be necessary for online learning. That's what that hotspot is for. And so we will be tracking kind of a little bit of that data piece as well, but also has very, very high speed. So it should not cause that lag that you sometimes get with Wi-Fi. And so we will be able to provide that for our families as well. That just comes to you. That's just part of the deal. Whether you're in bricks and mortar West Bloomfield or you're in Lakers Online, everybody's getting a Chromebook. Everybody will have access to all the technology that they're going to need and the apps that they're going to need to be able to do this successfully. And then obviously, if need be, we'll be able to provide Wi-Fi hotspots for you as well. Registration we talked a little bit about, but I'll reiterate. And Eric, you want to talk a little bit about registration gateway and what that looks like for our new families, and then also about what that enrollment process might look like with our enrollment center that's new.
Yeah, so if you are a current WBSD student, either as a resident or you're currently in our district online, you don't have to worry about this component at all. But for our new families that will be coming and applying through schools of choice to Lakers Online for the first time, you will enroll through our enrollment center. Marcia Eden is our staff person that works in the enrollment center. She is well-versed, excellent, friendly, and will help you out. So if you need to give her a call or email, please do not hesitate to do that. She is there and ready for you. Once you express interest in schools of choice, Lakers Online, you will be notified following the deadline, which is August 3rd for that component. Once you are admitted, if you get that letter that says you are in, then you will go online to our enrollment center and you will complete about 80% of your enrollment registration. Well, really now it's about 100%. Before you had to do it all online, and then you had to make an appointment in our enrollment center to come in to verify documents. We are doing a lot of that virtually now. So it really will be a seamless process for you, but it will really just start after that August 3rd window, when you get notification that your child has been accepted into SOC. Then you go through registration gateway. It's online. It's on our enrollment center website, and everything there that you need. If you would like to check that out, please feel free.
I'm unmuting myself. Here we go. So the other piece about registration is if you're a current West Bloomfield student. So I have my schedule. I'm going to be a 7th grader at Ohms, and I need to know which electives I'm going to take. That will be handled by obviously our counselors, no differently than we would at anybody else. They are not have not been really beyond what everybody knows around looped into Lakers Online. So I would not suggest emailing your counselor. First of all, summer vacation, and second, we're still in the process of bringing everybody on board so they understand the kind of that process and what that's going to look like. And again, that comes back to staffing. So we talked last time about we need to know by August 27th for staffing as well. Then we'll be able to identify counselors that will help us, and that we'll be able to transition students into online learning, certainly classroom teachers and so forth. So the process will be after you've committed in July 27th. We'll reach out to you. It won't be July 28th to build your schedule. I can guarantee you that. It probably won't be until the end of that first week of August. So right around probably the 6th or 7th before you'll hear anybody. We need some time to build those courses, get them ready to go, get our staff online, and then we'll begin to reach out to you. We talked last time as well. Parent orientation, student orientation is August the 13th. We'll have schedules and have some information for you ready to go by that time. So don't panic. If we don't hear from somebody on or on July 28th with your schedule, we know, we got you. We'll make sure that I'll communicate. We'll send out an email letting you know that we've received your registration, kind of the next steps and what that might look like in timeline. But we won't forget you, I promise. And if we do after that, then you can reach out to us. But we don't want you panicking. We'll make sure that we take care of you. We talked a little bit about extracurriculars, sports, clubs, etc. Of course, they are more than willing to be able to come in and to participate. It is still an unknown for all of us. One of the things that we just are not sure what that's going to look like in the fall. Right now, if you drive by West Bloomfield High School, you'll see our athletic teams are doing an excellent job with screening processes, with making sure they're getting their temperature checked every day, with social distancing when they're doing their workouts, and they're only outside, nobody's inside. They've done an outstanding job. The truth is, we just don't know what might happen beyond that. And so, yes, we want them to participate. We encourage our Lakers Online kids to continue. We know peer interaction is really important, and that being home can be very isolating, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that kids have that opportunity to interact with their kids, either in a club that they really like, or athletics, or whatever that may be. If they're little ones and they want to do first Lego robotics, or they want to do any of those sorts of things, absolutely. They are more than welcome to participate in any of those things. In whatever fashion we have those in the fall. So yet to be determined what exactly that's going to look like. So special education and ESL. We had a meeting today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Whitney. I believe that Ms. Swadish and Mrs. Zinsky said they were going to be hosting a Zoom webinar. Is that what they said? Can you reiterate that?
Yes, but I don't, I'm not certain of the date, but I know that, I would recommend to our families that you reach out to our special education department if you have questions about that. That is really an ongoing situation. That guidance is being developed at the federal and state level, and it trickles down to our ISD and to our staff. So they are working very, very hard to get all the information that you need, and are prepping for that webinar for our parents of students with special needs. And I'm just not sure the date.
Yeah, I don't know that they shared the date. I think that,
Help you out.
I think that's why. I was not to put you on the spot, like, were you listening? It was really, I'm not sure that they shared the date. I think they were still developing it. Both special ed and ESL obviously have some unique qualities that make them a little different than general ed, and that really require the expertise of both Hadil, Azo, and then obviously Diane and Kim. And so we would encourage you to reach out to Diane, who is Swadish, the director of special ed, Kim Zazinski, our supervisor of special services, and then Hadil Azo, who is our ESL coordinator for the district. They are more than willing to answer your questions as best they can at this point in time. As Eric said, we are waiting on guidance. Lots of guidance out there. One of the things we're not getting a lot of guidance on is special education right now, either from the feds or from MDE. So I would ask for our parents of students with special needs, please be patient with Kim and Diane. It's really not that they're trying to be evasive or that we're trying to be evasive. Obviously, when you're talking about something that's a legal document, we want to make sure that we're providing the best services possible for your student, that we're following the letter of the law, that we understand what that expectation is, and so that we can do our best that we possibly can. And so until we have some further detail about what that might mean, one of the conversations we had about is IEP amendments. And so how do we write those? And how do we make sure that we have our service hours and minutes accurately documented? And if we're online, what does that look like if I'm a resource room student? If I'm a student with a specific learning disability and I need support, what does that look like online? And how do the teachers document that and provide that? And so there are certainly models out there. This is not the first time students with special needs have been involved in online learning. We just want to make sure we do it the very best we possibly can. And so I know that Kim and Diane are anxiously waiting to have conversations with everyone to get some guidance from the state, and then to be able to share that with you and to put our West Bloomfield plan in place. And so I anticipate that coming very, very shortly. And so that certainly will help you before the 27th make those decisions. Again, we were to talk about what we did last week. You need to be very cognizant that there's a level of rigor here and independence that is needed for your children to be successful. If I had questions, and I know I had some of them in our Lakers Online email address about not sure whether this was the right placement or not for your child, I would reach out to your child's caseload teacher. I would reach out to Diane and Kim. You might reach out to your building principal. You might reach out to the counselor who know your children really well, and really have the kind of talk about what those concerns are and what it is that is drawing you to Lakers Online, and what it is that might be having some reservations about making this decision. Obviously, you know your children best, but we also know how they've been successful in different learning environments. And we want to make sure that we steer you in the best way possible. As far as ESL goes, I've had lots of conversations with Hadil. We actually have one scheduled on Thursday to have some follow-up conversation about what ESL services might look like and how we can best deliver those. It would be very difficult if you were a newcomer family, so a student who really just is learning the language, just has arrived in the US, to move into an online setting. That would be very, very tough. And we probably would encourage you, if you were a newcomer or probably even a level 1 performer on the WIDA, so still in that learning language stage, we'd want you to probably come in and do some in-person, simply because it's very difficult to learn a language when you're just having virtual instruction only, and the level of academic work that you're being expected to do is probably beyond where you are language development wise at that time. Conversely, though, if you are a student who has typically had very little service, maybe consult only, I think we can support and be able to manage what you need in Lakers Online. And we'll work with you again, no differently we do with special education families, to provide whatever the best services that we can reasonably, and to assure that it's the best experience for your students. So yes, you're more than welcome to participate. I just think that you might want to have conversations with people that know your children well educationally, and to help fashion what that programming might look like. And we'll work with you to determine that as well. Science labs, hands-on activities, and so forth. So I have my resident science guru, Amy Quinn, who's all about what are we going to do with science and what science is going to look like and so forth. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you envision and we've talked about with online might happen?
Sure, and I'll for middle school and for high school. It's going to be case by case and depending on the class, but we all know it's so important to have those hands-on experiments, investigations when possible. So let's take elementary first. Maybe the class is learning about force, and maybe the students use something in their house to share their learning on a push or a pull, and explain that. So however we could modify those experiences, we would. For middle school, they might be looking at some kind of anchoring phenomena. They might be trying to figure out a problem and use the science to kind of help explain what's going on. So that might be a scenario. So through Canvas, the teacher could take them through a different scenario. There could be discussions, screencasts. And then when it comes to both middle school and high school also, any kind of virtual lab that we could find that would be available, even like the ability to have a screencast to kind of show different things and then have that discussion. So we know how important that is, and we are definitely going to modify as best that we can. So I hope those examples kind of helped. And I know once we get that course description, we can even explain a little more.
We talked a lot about creating these at-home to-go bags with supplemental materials, and that will include some science things. We want them. We saw in the spring, right? So if you were going to go out and collect leaves, or you needed to watch a chemical reaction safely, some of those sorts of experiment things, the teachers will walk you through what those look like, and we saw lots of experiments with families and so forth. So we know that we need to give you as many online experiences and hands-on activities that you can manage at home as a family. We don't want this to become a full-time job for you. And so we'll find a nice way to balance that as well. And our teachers are fantastic. They are creative. They'll find ways to get things that you need. So that's kind of where we are with all those good things as well. Switching between online and in person. I think we're back to this one again. It's great. We talked about it. I don't know if I need to say it one more time. We really encourage you to make the decision. If you're an SOC student only, for your Lakers Online, you're there for the full year. If you're our student, then you're going to commit for a semester. And if you start in bricks and mortar and decide you want to move to Lakers Online, we will work with you. We just want to make sure that it's the right fit. So again, kind of those case by case things. Individualizing learning. Maybe one of you two others or anyone wants to talk a little bit about the competency-based model we're doing with teachers right now, and kind of what we're hoping to see around pace and place and time with students. So would someone like to talk about what we developed for teachers and what that might look like? Catherine.
I'll chat about that for a minute. Part of the nice thing about an online curriculum is that because students are not coming into class and there's not necessarily that daily and weekly time constraint that students have to get assignments done and to learn at a certain pace, that it offers an element of individualized learning. So students can work at their own pace to a degree and work their way through modules, and they can go deeper if they have a passion or an interest in a subject, or if they need more help. They can move quickly through things they already understand or know how to do, or learn more quickly. And so with that, we can offer kind of this competency-based model where the online teachers can see if a student has mastered a subject or a topic or a standard, something that they're being asked to learn. And once they do master that, then they can move on to the next thing. And they don't have to wait for the class, or they don't have to master it by Friday because that's when the quiz is, as you would often see in a traditional class.
Perfect. So, and we also know that students some work will need more support and will work a little more slowly, and some will just go, quickly through everything. And that is the beauty of those things. So our teachers are experiencing this now. We opened professional development for them in Canvas yesterday, and there were teachers that are almost done. I mean, they really literally sat down and said, okay, I'm gonna knock it out, and it's 12 hours of a minimum of professional development that they've done. So outstanding. There are others that will take more time, and there will be others that will wait until the night before it's due. That's just the way it is. Teachers are people too. Your children will do the same thing, and so that we wanted to model for our teachers, that flexibility. We don't all have to move through the same pace. We don't all have to follow the same path. There are multiple ways. There are options within the professional development we gave them, that we gave options to them to choose different courses, ways to show their learning, trying to model that that's also effective for students. And so we will do the same thing for your kids. So we'll do our best to create these learning opportunities that are robust and meaningful, and also are paced at the correct way for your children. And so again, when you get into this and your children either are struggling or really whipping through it, that's a conversation that you'll want to have with your child's teacher, about whether or not we need to enhance, whether we need to supplement, whether we need to provide some additional intervention if need be. So it's just that those constant communications. Our teachers will be watching as well, your child's progress, and certainly will reach out to you as we progress through the semester. Engaging young learners. So one of the things we talked about is that right after we've identified the teachers that will be moving to Lakers Online, some additional professional learning they will be required to do is around engaging all learners, certainly even high school students, but particularly young learners in an online environment. So what does that look like if we're in a small group Zoom meeting? And they've already started this a little bit. We did some PD this spring with them as we progressed, so probably mid-May. We did some strategies that teachers might use to make sure that students are engaged and paying attention, and participating. One of the things that we would really talk about is that teachers needed to be very explicit in what students needed to have in front of them, so that it wasn't today I need a pencil, and then little Johnny runs off and it takes 10 minutes for them to find a pencil and they're not prepared to start class. So making sure that they know what they need to bring and have in front of them. We talked a lot about using visuals. It's very engaging for students. So if you're doing a read aloud, if at middle school you're going to demonstrate a problem, if you're going to do a lab experiment and you're going to show them what that looks like, then you're going to want to have those materials in front of you so it's engaging, that they can see it, not just talk about it. So part of the professional learning our Lakers Online teachers will do, and most of our teachers know these things, and we'll just continue to enhance over the course of time, is that how do you make sure that the lessons are fast-paced enough, that you have enough visuals, that students know what they need to have in front of them so they can follow along. We talked a lot about what those supplemental materials we'll have at home that they can pull out. If we're going to do math manipulatives, and that includes even in middle school, and they need to build whatever math model that they're doing in geometry, that they have those pieces at home that they can do as well. I'm hoping I'm not embarrassing myself talking about geometry math models. Amy is smiling.
Doing good. You're doing great.
I was a high school English teacher, not a math teacher. And so if they were going to build those things, then they would want those pieces in front of them so they too could participate in the lesson. So we also talked a lot about social emotional learning, and so we will be engaging in conversation already, has started, with Lynn Swarhorn, our school mental health specialist, and Becky Heisch, who is our restorative practice coach. They'll be developing professional learning for our teachers and resources for our families about how to help kids social and emotionally engage in online learning, and also find that balance between screen time and experiential, because that's really going to be important as well. Interactions with peers, how are we going to seek those? What do you do if your children start to withdraw? And what does that look like? And how do you provide support? And so, yes, those are all things that we are beginning to work on. Amy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just to kind of talk a little more about the young early learners. So things like guided reading that are done in the classroom, we will be doing guided reading virtually. Our resources for our math is Bridges, and there are online digital tools that we can use. Our main resource for science is FOSS, and they're able to access that online. So things that we do in the classroom will be engaging those students also virtually.
Very good. See, so good. So hopefully we kind of have some good plans in place, and we're excited. Our teachers will be as well. State testing. So our favorite topic, right? So last spring, the federal government and then obviously MDE suspended any state testing requirements. So we did not give the SAT, the PSAT, we did not give the M-STEP, grades 3 through 8. We had no state testing. The state of Michigan has applied for that same waiver for this school year. They've submitted a letter to the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, asking for that same waiver for the 2021 school year. Obviously, at this point in time, we don't know what that is. If indeed we are not granted as a state that waiver, your child will be expected to participate in M-STEP, PSAT, and SAT as appropriate. So if I'm a third grader, I'll be expected to participate in M-STEP because that waiver is still there, and that this is a public school and that is a requirement. So those things will be still yet to be determined. We don't know what that's going to look like. There is a fall PSAT date, SAT date that has been established by the state. We're participating in the late September date. I believe it's a Wednesday, the last Wednesday in September. We think, obviously, depending upon what in-person instruction looks like, obviously whether or not there's a waiver at that point in time, we're just not sure. Catherine is our testing coordinator. So Catherine, would you like to weigh in a little bit on state testing?
It's essentially what you said. Currently, our testing teams are planning for business as usual and going through the process that we would normally do, although we don't normally have that amount of testing in the fall because they've moved it from the spring that we did lose. But regardless, we're going through those same motions that we would do normally. But we are anticipating, obviously, that the state will make changes in the requirements and we will follow suit with what those changes are.
Thank you. We've had some conversation about NWEA. This year, incoming kindergartners are required to take the KRA, that stands for something, Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, I believe, correct, right, Gianna? And so as part of the package of assessments that are required by the state of Michigan, including the NWEA, because that's our universal screener. And so we anticipate continuing with those things, including NWEA, not only because of the state testing need, the need for data to provide to MDE, but for our own information. We want to know where your children are starting the year, and so that we can provide instruction that's at their level. And so we know that it's probably not where it was even when you left in March necessarily, or maybe exactly where you left in March or your children left in March, but we need that as baseline data so we can build our lessons going forward. NWEA can be given. We can push that software out and that browser out to your Chromebook at home. There is, someone worried about whether or not students could maybe not be truthful and enhance their scores. There's no reason to. I mean, there's no reason for them to do that. There's no reason for anybody to help them. It doesn't do them any good, other than maybe pushes them a little faster than what they even need. So we anticipate being able to push that out to all of our learners because we need to be able to have data to support that instruction. So when that's going to occur exactly, we often don't test until late September anyway. We'll have to kind of gauge where we are just instructionally at that point in time, emotionally for kids, and certainly where we are with just things across the state and what phase we might be in with the governor. So that's kind of where we are with testing at this point in time. Is Laker Online another school in the district? So it is and it isn't. It's one of those, which is a non-answer. I understand that. So really what it is it's an online option that we will be able to, you will enroll into Lakers Online if you're coming in through registration gateway. There's a Lakers Online elementary option. There's a Lakers Online middle school option. There's a Lakers Online high school option. For our current students, we're just going to move you into this kind of virtual world called Lakers Online. And so yes and no. So it's not, it will be a part of our regular West Bloomfield School District. It's part of our regular accreditation process, hence why it's a West Bloomfield diploma that you're going to leave. And because it's not a building, it's less so about another school within that designation. But what you'll see on a transcript, or what you would see on a report card would be a designation that it was a virtual experience for your children. I just want to be clear about high school parents. By law, your child can take up to 2 online classes every single semester, every year. And that's the law is called 21F. It's an accounting law within the state of Michigan for schools. And so Colleges don't look any differently in online experiences than what they do in class experiences. So there's not this disadvantage or advantage of being in an online learning environment or an in-person learning environment. Colleges don't discount what they see. Of course, what they want to see is high performance. So they want to see solid grades and solid attendance. And so that's really what they're looking. There's not going to be a designation where they're going to say, well, they took XYZ course online and didn't take it in person. No, those are looked on as the same option because kids have that now. And so we want to be clear that yes, while it's still not a bricks and mortar school within the district, there will be a different designation and transcripts will be designated differently as well. So, but it's not a negative, it just looks different. Okay, so we are to the end of our presentation where we hit a lot of high level things. So what we tried to do tonight was to get kind of those really not quite so individual questions answered. I can't tell you today what your 4th grade schedule teacher is going to look like. I don't know. I can't tell you that today. I can't tell you when the high school is going to release their regular schedules for the start of the school year. I don't know any of those kind of details at this point in time. What we wanted to try to do were hit those overall themes that we had seen in the questions that you had submitted. And I think the team has been trying to, because all I see them doing is feverishly typing, and so is answer your questions in the chat as I've yammered on at you. And so we want to make sure that, were there any additional questions that maybe that were themes that I needed to be able to answer before we let people go today?
I think one common theme was just about the course schedule, what it would kind of look like. And I know that's kind of to be determined, but I believe July 22nd is when that will be finalized. But there were a few questions around how, the descriptions of the courses, hours, different things like that. Do we have any more that we could answer with the course description at this time?
To be honest, the course descriptions for high school and middle school are going to be cut and paste right out of the high school and middle school course scheduling guide.
Okay, so it'll be
those courses are those courses. So if you want a sneak preview, then you might want to go ahead and take a look at what those are going to look like. As far as hours go, as we just talked about, there's not this seat time component. So there isn't this piece that says you have to be in front of your computer for X amount of hours a day, or that you need to take ELA 7 is going to take you 2 hours every single week or 3 hours every single week. That's not going to be the case. We're going to have opportunities for you to interact with teachers, and we'll work through that with the teachers, what that daily schedule might look like in elementary. Again, as I said at the beginning, they're going to operate really within a typical school day schedule. So there's not going to be an 8 o'clock Zoom call. There's going to be things that are going to happen during the course of the school day. What would be a typical work day for a teacher and a typical school day for a student. And then obviously as we get closer into what works best for kids and what works best for that staff member, those will kind of be some flexibility things that we're going to want to put in place once we've identified who those teachers are. If you wanted to know what English 9 would look like online, all you need to do is go to English 9 at the high school and look at their course scheduling guide. We're really not going to deviate much from those things. If there are required readings, they'll be available. If there are required written assignments that would be no different if you were in person, then those are the things that we're going to do. There are certainly nuances and maybe some limitations when you talk about group work and things like that. Not that can't be overcome. We've used collaborations. We've used the discussion board. There's video options within Canvas. And so it'll look similar as best we possibly can to mirror what would happen in in-person instruction.
And then we addressed most of them. Some, we've written them all down. Do we know ratios of how many students would be in a virtual class? There were a few questions around elementary and class.
We have not determined that yet. So those are conditions of employment that we bargain with our teachers union. So as you can imagine, this is uncharted territory for many things. And so we don't really have contract language that specifically revolves around online learning. So we have a very lengthy list. We work really hard in collaboration with our WBEA, and we really work very closely together. So that is one of the items that we will be discussing as conversations are ongoing, and we're still working on getting all the details finalized. So stay tuned on that.
There were a couple of questions about and hopefully you guys can clarify, what is the last point at which a current West Bloomfield student can have a change of heart and move away from online and back into bricks and mortar?
Well, the FAQ says that 2 weeks, we would give it a 2-week trial period, right? So the school starts August the 26th. And if you were going to start there and then decide you wanted to go into bricks and mortar, then we would give you those first 2 weeks to try it. But that's it. Like, we cannot go any longer than that. Again, for staffing purposes, again, and this, we really want you to be clear before you make this decision, because of that. That sounds very selfish that it's about staffing. That really is not that's not it. If we, it's a part of it. If we are really looking at building cohorts of students for social distancing purposes and limiting kids' movement within a building so that we are mitigating the risk for those kids who are there, we can't have kids in and out. And so we need to make sure that you're making those decisions, understanding that that is going to be disruptive to those mitigation efforts that we're trying, and that we want to make sure that we do as little of that as possible for the families who have made the decision that they want to come back to in-person instruction. So 2 weeks would be the absolute. So that's that Wednesday after Labor Day. I believe that would be like the 10th maybe of September. That would be sort of the be all end all. That decision would have to be made.
Okay.
Anything else?
You may have addressed this while I was answering questions, but if so, we'll just hear it again.
Okay, perfect.
Can you describe what materials and manipulatives, I mean, obviously that's for lower L, but what materials will students be provided with for Lakers Online?
So we, elementary in particular, K-5, we just placed the order today. So we order, well, Amy and I are still working on the math order, what makes most sense. And some of those things we already have in stock in our classrooms, and so we can just shift them to online. So it might be, I'm going to talk about ELA things that I can speak knowledgeably about. So we ordered whiteboards for everybody. We ordered whiteboard markers for everybody. We ordered paper, the correct writing paper that we would want to use to model good handwriting skills. They still need to write. And certainly what we would want is they develop their small moments and publish their books and those sorts of things. We have placed, or we'll soon be placing another significant order for books that are at your child's reading level. We'd like to do some screening pretty early on to see exactly what reading level that they currently are reading, and so then be able to provide books to keep for you to have at home to do guided reading with our teachers, just to reinforce fluency and practice and comprehension and all those sorts of things. We also ordered some other like magnetic letters for lower L. We know that that's really important that there's that tactile piece, and so that if they are spelling words, whether inventively or correctly, that they have those letters in front of them. We will be looking, Amy and I know last spring talked with our science company that provides our materials about some options for some at-home kits that we might be able just to mail to people's homes. I know we did something with a chrysalis, I think, right, this spring. Is that what we had? Do we have a butterfly? And so we did, and it got mailed. We're not mailing everybody butterflies. I want to be clear about that. Not all of you are getting butterflies, but some things that we would be able to supplement with science as well. And then you remember, if you're a current West Bloomfield family, K-5, we made supplemental packets and provided those to you as well. And so we would have some just resources, papers that you might be able to use, some math practice, some writing practice, reading practice, those sorts of things. Middle school and high school, students are going to need some additional resources, but most of those we can provide via Canvas. So whether that's, I'm going to give an example. They use several databases that provide primary source documents. They're going to have access to those kinds of things. I know that if you're talking about college prep math, so CPM, which is our math curriculum, a lot of those things are just group work opportunities and probably less around manipulatives, but just multiple ways to solve problems and to do those sorts of things. We would rather provide some of those authentic learning experiences where you're working with peers. So not necessarily supplemental resources, but particularly at K-5, I know that came up in my focus group conversation yesterday that they wanted additional things, tactile things that they could use at home. We will be providing those, and not a one-time shot. I see this as an ongoing, like, okay, now we're ready for the next, and teachers will direct that for us and for you about when we're ready to add additional supplemental materials. Anything else? Okay, so here's the thank you. As you kind of wind down tonight, I appreciate all of you who attended. We have many, many of you online this evening. We did record this, so we'll make sure that we get this out. Dan Durkin, who exists in lots and lots of spots on our website, in our webinar tonight, we'll make sure that we get the recording posted. We'll get the obviously the we'll just talk about the questions. We'll share the presentation. Please use the Lakers Online at WBSD for your individualized questions. The people that you see on the screen are able to see those emails and will help me to respond. If we don't know right now, we're going to respond with, we don't know right now. We're working through that. And maybe we hadn't thought about that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I promise you that we will do a better job in the next few days getting back to you if you've already submitted questions. We've got PD up and rolling. And so now we can kind of move on to our next round, which is Lakers Online and back to school and all those sorts of things. If you are still on the fence about whether or not this is the best option for you and for your children and for what your family needs to be able to manage, I would encourage you then to make time next week, 10 a.m. or 7 p.m. to hear what our return to school plan will be for the fall. Again, pending whatever situation we're in with the governor at that point in time and whatever might lie ahead as we try to monitor what's happening with the pandemic. But we're going to present a number of important details next week. And so that's why we've tried to do a really good job aligning decision making with when we're giving you information. So presentation on Lakers Online last week, question and answer session tonight. Next Tuesday, opportunity to hear about what our in-person instruction model will be as we think about coming back to school in August and being able to be back for in-person instruction. Wednesday, the course scheduling guide goes live, so that gives you an opportunity to view what that's going to look like. Decision for in-district students by the 27th. Decision for SOC application closes August 3rd. So we've tried to make sure that we're keeping you up to date on all the information as soon as we have it, and that it gives you plenty of time to make those decisions that work best for you and your family. So thank you for coming again this evening. We will capture any questions we have captured. We'll continue that are in the Q&A. The team and I will work to get those answered and get those uploaded and onto the website as soon as we possibly can. So thanks once again for coming to this evening, and we look forward to engaging with you, I'm sure, again soon.